Hey everybody, Justin White here, and you're about to listen to episode 16 of Power Forward. Our guest is Alex Wright, co-owner of Detroit City FC. Alex and a group of his friends have taken a grassroots team and turned it into one of the best success stories in American soccer. You'll find out how they've done it while maintaining the brand that their supporters first fell in love with. Alex also talks about the challenge of defining goals as the team has experienced rapid growth and finding a roadmap for success. Let's kick it with Alex Wright right now on Power Forward. The primary purpose of this podcast series is to inform, entertain, and educate. The information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast series do not constitute legal or other professional advice, opinions, or endorsements of any kind.
This is Power Forward.
All right, Justin White, Mateen Cleaves with you, and we are pleased to be joined by the co-owner, one of the co-owners, I should say, of Detroit City FC Soccer Club. Alex Wright is with us. Alex, welcome to Power Forward.
Thanks, guys. Great to be here. Great to sit here and talk to you guys about DCFC.
Yeah, great to see you. And we all know each other, it turns out, from a past life, our past TV careers. So this is bringing it full circle now, having you on the show.
Yeah, I'm still not quite used to being the one behind the microphone, but I'll do my best. I don't have the charisma that you guys do, but...
Well, I think you're selling yourself just a bit short. But,
he is. He's definitely doing that, for sure.
We digress. Alex, for those out there who don't know you or about Detroit City FC, just give us an introduction, about yourself and about Detroit City FC.
Sure. So Detroit City FC is a soccer team. We're based in Detroit, and we're less than 10 years old. We will be professional starting next year, but really the growth from where we started in 2011 till today is really unprecedented in American sports, specifically when you talk about soccer. We were founded by five buddies that met playing co-ed pickup soccer, a rec league, that one of my partners founded in the city of Detroit. At the time, there was nothing like that downtown, so it was tough to even find opportunities for recreation downtown. My buddy Sean Mann, who's one of my partners, started the Detroit City Football League, which was just co-ed soccer. We were all on different teams. We met, got to talking because we were looking around in this league, and there was 2,000 or 3,000 people playing in this pickup league, and we're just like, well, if 1/10 of these people come to a soccer game, we might be able to make a soccer team, and for years and years, people were saying that you couldn't have a soccer team in Detroit, let alone downtown Detroit. We disagreed. We gave it a try. We played our games at Cass Tech for the first couple of years. We thought we would be okay and we could break even if a few hundred people showed up to each game. First game, 1,200 people showed up. And all of a sudden,
first game.
Yep. And all of a sudden, and I believe that was the game where it rained too. So, so all of a sudden it went from an idea to an opportunity. And the story of DCFC since then has been the story of us trying to figure out a way to grow this incredible idea, this incredible concept where we're trying to promote the sport, trying to promote the city. We all live in the city, so trying to promote the neighborhoods as well, but also trying to grow a business. And we're at the point now where, like I said, we have a professional men's team. At least we will starting in the spring. We also have an indoor soccer facility downtown. We have a bar and a restaurant inside that soccer facility. We have youth soccer programs, and we're still doing the rec league. Not to mention, we're working with youth affiliates. So it's really been, from a bunch of guys playing really bad pickup soccer a few years ago to a proper professional soccer team. It's been quite a ride. And one of the most unexpected things that's, it could happen to anyone, let alone five diehard Detroit sports fans like us.
And I think it's safe to say that you guys are having some success right now, which is, great job with it. But my question to you is, were there people saying that this wouldn't work? I'm sure people say, well, a soccer team in Detroit, but yet you guys still had the confidence to push forward with it with something that was not usual here in the city of Detroit.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. I grew up here, born and raised. I lived in the city for the first 10 years of my life, and then I moved out to the suburbs for the next 10. I've been back in the city since then. So I feel like I've got a pretty good sense for like where people's heads at for sports in this town. And pro soccer is like as low as you can get. In terms of people's expectations. The reason for that is because for about a generation, people were saying that it wasn't possible. You know, despite the fact of the World Cup coming around every once in a while and people saying it was the next big thing, people didn't think that it was going to work because it's failed a couple times. That's what we were hearing, but that's also not what we were experiencing. 30 years ago, it might have been true that soccer wasn't going to work in Detroit, but that's because it was a different model doing a different thing. So what people thought was impossible, we kind of flipped that around. And what we came to the conclusion is where the reason people thought it wasn't going to work, that you couldn't do Detroit downtown, we went and we decided that and realized, because we lived down there, that the reason it hadn't worked so far is because it wasn't downtown.
Oh,
right.
Okay.
So by starting Detroit soccer, playing it in the city, this was a time 10 years ago when there was so much entrepreneurial spirit downtown, which is still continued today. Like the city was coming out of sort of a funk in some ways. We've got a long way to go still, but we were kind of riding that wave of, what's possible to do downtown. And I think it took like our generation of entrepreneurs to give it a go and see the potential in something that really up until then people had just completely written off.
And you mentioned, the entrepreneurial spirit and all these people who are trying to, be a part of this comeback story in the city of Detroit, you and your partners included. But you look at the explosive growth you guys have experienced, and I'm sure you get this question all the time, like, how did you guys do it? How did you build this thing from the ground up to the point where now it's growing so rapidly and you have this huge following, not just here locally, but also in different parts of the world?
Yeah, to give folks some context, we pull like between 6,000 and 8,000 people a game on average to our games. The last couple of games we've had, it's not uncommon for us to be over 7,000. To our home games, we play at Keyworth Stadium in Hamtramck. That's completely unprecedented for amateur soccer in America.
Oh yeah,
it's also pretty unprecedented for professional soccer in America below the MLS level. In terms of existing professional soccer clubs, we would place like, fourth or fifth nationally, just doing what we're doing now. That's before we go pro. So, it's actually forget what your question was.
My question was, how have you guys done this? I mean, how did you build this thing to the point where it is now, where you are getting thousands and thousands of people to come out to your games?
So that's your contract. That's your background. We're getting that many people today, up from a few thousand when we first started. I wish we could take all the credit, but one of the coolest things that we've got going with DCFC is the atmosphere and the environment of our game days, right? If you've got something like a sporting event, folks that understand college sports, Mateen, you can probably speak to this. It's not just about the game. The game is super important, right? The win and the loss at the end of the day is what we're all there for. But the experience, the environment, the crowd, the just like the sound and the smell, right? The feel of it. That's something that we've leaned into completely with DCFC, and that all starts with our supporters. We have probably the most electric atmosphere in American soccer. We've been told that it ranks up there internationally as well because we've hosted international teams. And the secret there was that when we started the club, because it was just 5 of us, we didn't really have a ton of time to like curate what the supporters were going to be doing as well. So we had some key supporters reach out, ask if we had plans, that being the owners, to do something to support the club. And we're like, nah, man, we're hoping that like people kind of show up and like whatever happens. They're like, okay, thanks.
We're in.
see it at the game. And we're just like, that was kind of weird. I wonder what that means. Well, what that means is singing, smoke, signs, choreographed dancing, you name it.
The march to the games. Tell our listeners about that.
Yeah, so it's traditional, especially internationally, for soccer stadiums to be in neighborhoods, right? It's kind of foreign to the American idea, except for like, Old Tiger Stadium or Wrigley. But in soccer, that's different. These are usually community spaces, right? So it's common for like the folks and the fans to congregate and march to the game together and enter the field at the same time. That's what we do in Hamtramck. That's what our supporters do, I should say. I'm up in the press box working. We got thousands of folks. Now it's gotten so big that they meet at different locations. The main location is the Fulling Warehouse, which is in Hamtramck. And they all meet there and they walk through the neighborhood, singing, chanting, starting with the smoke bombs already, waving flags, and it creates this like festival atmosphere. Before the game has even started, you could hear them, in the press box. You can hear this like crowd singing, getting closer and closer and closer and closer, and then they bust in, and then the event has started, right? And that's what gets people hooked. All these, we've got so many folks talk to us about, I never thought that I liked soccer, let alone that I would be a season ticket holder, but then I went to one of your games and like something clicked, right? This is a different experience than you see pretty much anywhere else.
Wow, I'm coming. You don't have to worry about that. I'm going to be out there marching and singing, and I'm going to take it all in. Now let me ask you this, because you guys, you got a lot of support from the city, which is fantastic, but you have a product out on the field. So I played in the minor leagues and had good and bad experiences. I've been around owners that didn't treat us so well. And I've been around owners that did, that treat us well and made us feel important. And we wanted to go out and, play hard for our ownership. For you guys, not only do you have the support here, but you have to be doing something right for your players, that the players on the team.
Well, you'll be happy to hear up until this past year, our head coach the entire time was, his day job was the assistant coach for Michigan State soccer.
Oh, yeah.
Ben Pierman, and then before him, Kylie Stannard.
Oh, so that's why you guys are winning.
Yeah. So that had a lot to do with it. And I'm happy that we were lucky to have both Ben and Kylie with us as long as they did, because we were a purely amateur model, and those guys knew the game and they knew the talent in the area, and they were the ones making the calls, right?
Nice.
This last year, Ben moved up to a professional job in Memphis, and that created an opening for us, and we were extremely lucky to hire Trevor James, who is an extremely experienced professional soccer coach. He has experience working with the English national team. He's coached in the MLS for decades. This is a gentleman who came across Detroit CDFC. This is a perfect example of how proud we are as an organization to have accomplished what we've accomplished, because there's no way that a dude with a resume like Trevor's looks at a team like DCFC unless he doesn't see something beyond what we are today. Right? This is a guy who grew up in England, so he understands what a team can mean to a community.
Yes.
He understands what a winning team can mean to a community, and the importance of winning to building an organization. Trevor came in at the beginning of this season. We had the full intentions of being professional this season, so that was another reason we brought him in, because he has an experience in the professional game. It didn't work out that way this year, but it'll be the case next year. And from day one, he has been building a professional organization using his experience. So if you were to look at what our guys do, it would look a lot more similar to a professionally run experience than an amateur side. We're doing video, we're feeding them breakfast and lunch. They're staying in the space. They're doing their training together. They're working together. They're having fun together. And they're winning, right? Because not only does Trevor bring the professional culture, he brings 30 years of soccer experience where he's doing stuff. And I'm not a soccer guy; I'm a sports guy. The amount that I've learned about the game just in the last 8 months that we've been with him, it's impossible to describe. And more importantly, it shows on the score sheet. We went the entire summer by losing. We lost our first home game, and we just lost our last home game. And in the middle were something like 26 straight unbeaten games.
Wow.
We won 2 championships, the regular season and this fall season just ended. It's been the most successful season we've ever had, and it's the perfect like jumping off point for next season, ready to go pro.
Wow.
I want to go back to a point you made too about the supporters and the amount of just buzz that they are able to generate for you and for the team. When it comes to establishing a brand identity, to have all these people marching through these neighborhoods, wearing your gear, wearing your colors, and introducing new people to your product. I mean, to me, it doesn't get much better than that.
Well, yeah, and going back to the fact that we're like 5 sports crazy dudes from Detroit, like there's no cooler opportunity that like a young sports fan in Detroit can get than like creating a team.
Yes.
Right? Like most of us, the closest we ever get to that is like the Nintendo game that you're
Sure.
like building your team, and you're like changing everyone's names and be like, oh, I know what color we want to be. We got to do that. Building building an organization. It's so important to remember the values and the reasons and the culture of what drove you in the first place, right? Growing, it's hard to believe it's been almost 10 years now, but we started out wanting to promote the sport and wanting to promote the city, and we've been able to stay true to that all the way through. So like when fans do show up, they love that they're not just rooting for a team to win, they're helping support local charities, which we're doing on a weekly basis, nearly raising money for local Detroit-based charities.
That's great.
Supporting youth kids. Soccer is an extremely expensive sport to play. As a result, a lot of city kids, no matter how good they are, they can't really access those opportunities. Our youth program is set up in a way where we take the profits from alcohol sales at our games to help fund these kids to be able to play on our youth clubs.
I love it.
So what would normally be like thousands of dollars of cost is down in the hundreds. And I mean, we just started these teams and these kids are really good, right? Like they just needed that opportunity.
Yes.
And that's what we're trying to do by like creating a different type of, it's like bringing the idea of sports back to the community.
And kudos to you guys for that, because a lot of people, they don't take the time to give back to the community. People will come in and make money, but they don't give back. So Great job with that. Now, let me ask you this, because I think successful teams, companies, I think this is something that they all have. And how important is roles to your success, meaning your business, your team? I know, I'm sure all you guys probably bring something different to the table as far as you owners. You have a coach. I don't see you on the sideline calling plays. I think you guys trust him. That's his role for your organization to have success for you. So how important has roles been to you guys' success?
Yeah, it's been extremely important. And we've been very fortunate that when we started, the 5 of us, the original ownership group and the current ownership group, we each bring something very unique to the table. And those are valuable skills. My personal skill is more in the realm of like sports, media, creative, production type stuff. But we have really great skill set with the rest of the owners. And even more importantly, is not those roles. And you have to have those. And when you're starting a small business, even more important than those roles is the willingness of those partners to contribute their skills as sweat equity. Right? We would not have gotten where we are today if the 5 of us wouldn't have just been okay seeing this organization grow. Like it's only been recently that we've been able to start hiring the owners to be full-time staff, right? So even though it was us selling tickets, serving hot dogs, updating the website for years, we were willing to take that growth and dump it back into the organization, right? So it's a combination of these really valuable skill sets, knowing your role, but also being unselfish and agreeing that the most important entity is the organization.
For other people, Alex, on that note out there who may be listening, who are thinking about starting their own business, and maybe it's not a soccer team, but maybe it's another business. How important is that to go into it kind of with this clear expectation that, look, at the start and maybe for an extended period of time, you are going to have to be very unselfish. You're going to have to make a lot of sacrifices, and it's a long game. It's not a short game.
Yeah, it's a long game. You have to. Most businesses, even most successful businesses, are going to be long games, right? So what you have to do is accept that, but also build within it goals. You still have to have goals. There still has to be a reason for you to be giving your time. You think about, most of us up until recently, we had 9 to 5s, and then we would go run this soccer team. It was our hobby, but it was our passion, right? So in the case of our club, while we're building it, it's like, oh, can we build this cool event where we can have a bunch of people and it's basically like a party. So it was like, at first it was like, oh, this is great. We're partying with our friends and we're doing this hobby and we're doing this great thing for the city. Then it became about, well, let's leverage where we're at now to help the community. And that becomes very fulfilling on its own, right? But you have to be very honest with yourself and where you are at in your life and understand, like, this is something I'm going to be happy with, right? I'm going to consider this a win. Because if you just sit around waiting for the money to start rolling in, you're not going to be happy, because chances are that's not going to happen. But it's also much more fulfilling to build success in other ways besides financial. Now, make no mistake, now our organization is fairly financially successful. We're doing quite well. But we're still in that model where we're investing back in the organization. And I think it's because up until now, we've had these other signs of success that we've been extremely happy with that allow us to make those tough decisions.
And you mentioned goals. So let me take you back to that, because goals, it gets me excited. And people are afraid to set goals. And I think I always say this saying, your will to win has to be greater than your fear of losing sometime. And I think people are afraid to set goals because they're worried if they don't hit the goal. So for you, goal setting, what was the mindset? Okay, how do you set goals that's attainable, but not too easy? That's one question. And the next one, if you do set goals and don't reach them, what's the process with that?
Well, so you're talking about within our organization, right?
Yes.
So the leadership group, like the guys in the field and our technical staff, like their goals is pretty simple. I'm jealous of their goals because their goals is win, right?
right.
Exactly. I wish my life was that simple.
That easy, right?
I'm jealous of you athletes because it's like your goals are very simple.
Yeah.
In terms of running the organization, figuring out what your goal is can sometimes be as complicated as attaining it.
Yeah.
Right? Because it requires honesty, it requires communication, because your goals and my goals might not be the same. Like why you showed up today and why I showed up today might be completely different reasons, right? So you got to sit down. And again, luckily, we've got a like-minded ownership group that when we first started out, we would have conversations about what do we want to be? What do we want this to be? And it sounds silly, looking back, but the result of one of these many conversations was that our goal was, this is like maybe 2012, we're still pulling like 1,500 people at Castech, not even selling alcohol, like not, like under the radar.
Getting kicked off the field, by the way, right? By the high school football coach who wants to practice.
We're like the second tier even in our home field. And we decided that our goal was to be the coolest soccer club in America. Bar none, regardless of the league, regardless of the venue.
I should have played soccer.
We wanted to be the coolest soccer team in America. Yeah. And if you just would have walked into that conversation at that point, you'd be just like, who are these clowns? And like, why would that, only to us that was a legitimate goal, right? Like, like goals can be, they can mean so many different things to so many different people, and they can seem completely unattainable. Yeah. But if they're aspirational, it helps you guide the way, right? So as ridiculous as it may have sounded in 2012, there were moments in 2013, 2014, 2015 where we would come to a decision point, and like it would be a factor where someone would be like, well, I mean, what's the cool thing to do? Right? And a lot of times that would be like foregoing a payout, or it would be like not making this partnership, or maybe not doing this kind of under the radar thing. Because in our estimate, and it's totally subjective what cool is, but like the point is we all agreed on an idea. Right. It could have been like the smartest team in America, the funniest team in America, or whatever. We agreed on it, and it helped us focus on attaining our goal.
You guys, you have the culture, you've got the on-field product, you talked about all the winning that the team has done, but there's got to be a strategy too in place, as you guys continue to grow, and obviously you want to continue doing that. So as you look at some of the risks the organization has taken, we were talking about the fact that you guys have brought in a a team from Europe.
Yeah.
That's not cheap to do. But I want you to tell people about that because you guys thought about doing that. There was a goal in mind with that decision, right?
Yeah. How to grow, right? There is no roadmap. None of us came into this knowing how to build a soccer team. Most people, if we'd ask anyone in our world for advice, I would have been just like, yeah, don't do it. Like that. There's my advice. So like that wasn't super helpful. We're at the stage now where we're sort of we're kind of past the baby steps of growth, and we're not going anywhere. We've established ourselves nationally and internationally, and you have to start thinking about bigger things. You have to start thinking about like culture. It's not just the 5 of us anymore, right? We've got full-time employees. We want them to we want their interactions with fans and customers and youth to be as if they were our reactions. We want to be on the same page. And we also want a bigger reach. Reach is huge in the world of sports. Reach is huge. It's a tough business. I don't care on what level you're at. The margins are tight, and you have to maximize free promotion, free marketing, earned media, as they say. And one of the ways that we've done that is by bringing in international clubs, right? I joke that I've probably given more interviews in foreign languages than in English because soccer's a world sport, and we've played teams from Germany, from England, Northern Ireland, Italy, and of course Mexico. And when we play those teams, it is an event internationally and in those countries, and it's growing to be something that folks notice around here. But depending, you have to contextualize that experience, right? Like, yeah, it's pretty big here. Like, we'll make the papers and stuff, and we're not paying for that promotion, and that's huge for us. But it's also like creating this buzz, that intangible coolness factor, right? Like, when you play an international team, you fly that international team here, right? And these are pros. Like the Mexican teams, for example, that's the highest level in North American soccer. Like that's the top, right? These guys have expectations.
Yes.
And you're paying them whether it rains or not, right? Like it doesn't matter how many people show up to this game.
That contract is signed.
You're making them whole. So you got to grow that, right? Like you gotta make sure that you maximize that experience in every single way you can, right? So that's when like the social media aspect of things really pays off, and like that's when the loyalty of your supporters really pays off because they're amplifying everything you're doing, right? And all of a sudden, before you know it, the stature of your club is starting to, you're like people that you didn't expect to know what you're up to. All of a sudden, they're like, "Dang, did you guys play some team from Germany last weekend? What was that all about?" And like, "Oh yeah," So those sort of moments at the stage we're at right now are extremely important, like playing those international clubs.
I'm glad you brought up social media because I want to ask you about the importance of having a strong social presence. Looking at your Twitter account, you guys have more than 24,000 Twitter followers, but you've also tweeted more than 22,000 times.
Oh, wow.
So tell me about the club's strategy in the social space, and you kind of touched on it just now. But what is the club's take on that, and how you can leverage social media to help you to continue to grow?
Well, okay, so 22,000 tweets.
Yeah,
let's say
plus.
Okay, so like 19,500 of them are done by Lindsay Pearson, our media director. We've got one of the best media directors in all of sports, not just soccer.
Obviously.
She has a phenomenal understanding of our voice and our tone, and as a leader of this organization, that's essential. If you think of your social media presence as a reflection of your voice, it's a lot easier to decide how you want it to be. You're less concerned first with like the information that it's giving, and because people can find things out in other ways, right? Like they can Google things, right? It's the way you're presenting the information. That voice is extremely important. And then in sports, like you're constantly like you're doing game updates, right? So you have to respect the fact that if folks want to be able to follow your game, for example, they're going to get like 30 tweets in the middle of that game, and then maybe you're going to ease off on them during the week, right? So you're only going to do it a couple times a day. But when you're dealing in an organization that does not have the budget for things like billboards and TV commercials, and I'm not even sure what TV commercials are worth these days in terms of reach, because I don't know who's watching them. I don't know who's seeing a billboard. Right? When it comes to social media, and this is like, I'm not reinventing the wheel saying any of this stuff, right? Like everyone knows this, but like at least I know if you're liking something, you're watching it, right? And you're sharing it. It's extremely important, and probably most importantly to DCFC and our ethic is it's interactive. If you like something that I'm telling you and you share it, then I know you like it, and then you feel like you're endorsing my message, right? So whether it's a community note, whether it's youth based, or whether it's just the fact that we want to, Members Cup championship last week, respecting that relationship is a huge part of our growth.
Interesting. And you guys continue to do it, and obviously this is it fair to say it's a grassroots story?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is that like, it kind of has like this, like underdog connotation to it, but also it's kind of cool, right? Which obviously is something you guys are going for, but you guys are essentially a grassroots story.
Yeah. I mean, I used to say this a lot. Like Detroit is the soccer of cities, and soccer is the Detroit of sports. Right? Like it's just like kind of off the radar. Everyone thinks they understand it, but they don't. Everyone's kind of like negative about it, but that's because they're uninformed. We disagreed with that take, and we saw the potential of combining that sport in our city and, building something special, right? Even in a market that was already more than saturated with professional sports, not to mention colleges, right? Like no one would take that bet. No one would take that bet. So it has to be a grassroots movement, because I don't think you can engineer from the top down. I don't care if you're a millionaire or a billionaire. You cannot engineer that type of authentic success with your checkbook. You gotta get your mom and dad helping you selling tickets year one. You gotta get your wives and girlfriends selling hot dogs year two. You gotta do it that way, because the fans that you're gonna build are gonna remember that moment. It's very similar to how we buy into our college sports. And Mateen, I don't need to tell you how that works.
Oh yeah, and and speak a little bit about how relationships help out, because I remember I was doing a music thing, and we didn't have a big budget. We were an independent label trying to grow into the music industry, and blessed enough, we grinded and worked hard and made it, and signed a deal with Dr. Dre. I had an artist, John Connor, that signed a deal with Dr. Dre. But it helped me along the way, the relationships I built. I cut a lot of cost because it was the certain relationships that I leaned on that was able to help catapult me to get in certain situations. So when you're building from the ground up, how important was certain relationships you had? How did that help you in your success?
Well, you're talking about trust.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I mean, I've got a lot of relationships, but I can't say that they're all defined by trust, right? And the ones that are defined by trust are the ones that you can really build off of, right? When you're running a business like a soccer team, that first and most important relationship is probably your staff and your players. But just right under that is your audience.
All right.
And the understanding that everything you do and every decision you make can or cannot reinforce your fans' support and trust in you. And like sports fans can be so fickle, all you got to do is just go on Twitter, right? It's an absolute minefield. People are just
it's dangerous out
there.
People are
just waiting. Yeah. People are just waiting for something.
They're waiting for you to mess up.
Yeah, they're waiting. So the only antidote to that, like the kryptonite for that, is trust. Yes. If you make it's impossible not to make a mistake.
Right.
Right. This is sports. Like most sports are based on like minimizing mistakes, not making them.
Right.
So you have to get to the point where embracing the fact that you're human, being real, right? Creating trust, being honest always. And that way, if you do mess up, instead of getting piled on, all of a sudden you're going to see your fans getting your back. Oh, yeah. And that's when you realize that you've figured something out.
That almost to me sounds like any business. I know that you were talking about sports, but to me that sounds like any company. If you build up that equity, that trust with your clientele, then you can bank on having that. And then when something goes wrong or something gets messed up, as long as you address it, you're transparent about it, you fix it quickly, they're going to forgive you. It's going to be okay.
Yep. That applies to a locker room, or that applies to a business transaction, right? Like if your coach coaches a bad game or calls a bad play, like the trust you have in him or her defines how you react to that failure, in the same way that a client or in our case, the fans would respect, because we're not perfect. We're not batting 1,000.
Right.
But you earn that trust.
And if things happen, you have to be solution focused. And it's funny. You think about people. Sometimes it's not the time to worry about why certain things happen. Let's fix it right now. I always say, if you drive off the car, if you're in the car and you drive off into a lake, I'm not going to be asking the guy who's driving, hey man, why did you drive into the lake? I don't care how we got to the lake. We want to get out of that car and be safe. So you want to be solution focused. Then, at some point we can dig back deeper into it and say, hey guys, let's try to prevent that from happening. But hey guys, it happened, solution focused, and move forward.
Yeah. Without a doubt. The history of Detroit CDFC is riddled with cars at the bottom of the
lake. But you guys are full.
But we're still swimming.
You're
man.
still floating. You're
right.
swimming. I mean, you're full steam ahead. I mean, you said you guys are still kind of in the infancy stage. So here's a question for you: how do you guys stay true, to your roots, to this great culture that people love about you as you continue to get bigger as an organization?
Well, yeah, that's a great question, because we are probably going to be getting to the point in the next decade of our career where we have to, there's a large entity in this city even that's, they're supposedly still bidding on an MLS team. That really hasn't sorted itself out, and the odds of that seem to be going down as opposed to up. But there was a time in the midst of our growth where it was very likely that Detroit was going to have an MLS team, and we would have been facing extinction unless we did our job perfectly. And then even then, if you're doing your job perfectly, but on the other side of the fence is an entity owned by 3 billionaires,
tough to compete.
Sometimes perfect doesn't always win, right? But that's not the reality now, and therefore, and to our credit, we recognize that, right? We're like, we got to run this organization the way we want to run it and staying true to what we're doing. It doesn't matter what people are saying about the future of soccer in this town, about the future of soccer in this country. If we take our eye off the ball, it's not going to matter, because it'll be on us if we fail, right? We cannot control things we can't control. Again, back to sports metaphors, right? Like that's how you succeed in the game, and that's how you succeed in running the team. So, we're hopeful now that we finally turned the corner to be professional. We're looking forward to another 2 or 3 years of just getting educated on how you run a professional club. There's a lot different expenses. The bottom line looks different. Expectation changes. I'm very interested to find out, how much of that trust we can rely on once, your fans know that you're paying your players and there is an expectation. It's not like, oh, we're working with amateurs and like, hey, they're doing their best, but they had to work that day. So I think I'm looking forward to a ton of growth. I'm looking forward to a ton of new partnerships and relationships as we get on the radar of larger organizations, and on the radar of sports in general. And I would also like to think that at a certain point, larger teams are going to start seeing what we're doing and what's working and finding out ways to make it apply to themselves. Like there are certain things that we're doing in our community, and there's certain ways that we're interacting with our fans that I think every team in America could benefit from. The honesty, the accessibility, the authenticity. We need that in our sports. Our sports are dying in many ways, and it's unfortunate. There's just not as much viewers. All you got to do is go online and go to empty seats galore. There's just empty stadiums all across the country. It's because folks are losing that connection between their team. So that's what we're looking to do. The next 10 years, we want the stadium to be as full as it's always been. And we want it to be the toughest ticket in town. Keyworth Stadium, maybe we'll get it up to 10,000 seats, and we want it to be the toughest ticket in town for as long as possible, and hopefully continue doing it the right way.
And I sit here and I work at a company that's growing. So every day, on a daily basis, we have to adapt to change because things are changing so fast. Now, you guys that's about to make this next step, a big step, how important is it for you guys to be able to adapt to different changes that comes along with you guys making this next big step?
Yeah, it's vital. It's vital. At a certain point, when it's not just you and your friends and family, and there's people depending on you.
Oh, yeah.
We've got full-time employees. We're asking players to come to Detroit to play for our team. All you got to do is do a quick search on the internet for all the soccer teams that have made that promise to players that have not been able to fulfill it. It's an unfortunate reality in minor league sports. Mm-hmm. I'm sure
Yeah.
You can speak to that. So we need to stay true to those values while we grow.
Okay.
Right? And there also needs to be an understanding that there are going to be certain things we certainly can't control. And stay flexible and nimble, right? Totally respect. I mean, obviously your organization is a little bit bigger than ours, but regardless of the size, you got to be nimble.
Yeah.
You got to figure out a way, no matter how many people you got in the room, like how do we stay flexible? How do we react? How do we make sure we're reacting to what's going on? I wouldn't even, like there's a dozen of us, right? Like we can react to things. It's pretty quick. But hopefully those are days where we are so big that we really need to make sure that we're doing it right. And that's open lines of communication, trust, and also like paying attention to what's going on out there, not just looking in.
Yeah.
And sometimes success can breed that, right? Like if you're doing so well, like why would you look anywhere else? You're doing great.
Right. Yeah.
By the way, I know you talked about the size of our company. I have definitely seen some people here on Fridays rocking their Detroit City FC gear.
Yeah.
They're definitely going to the game that night, so they are everywhere.
I saw a dude just walking into the studio.
LaRouche, City till I die, right?
I gave him the DC. I didn't hear if he gave me the FC back.
We're gonna have to get Mateen in full gear, full garb next season. I'm talking about face paint, the smoke bombs, the scarf, the full nine.
Mateen, I'm just saying, just be careful what you wish for.
I mean, they're the Northern Guard.
Yeah, there is no halfway in that section.
I'm an all-in guy.
They will take you in, and you will be unrecognizable by the time you're left.
I love it. I am all in. Michigan State to its own. I've been around.
Yeah, I was going to say, you know how it works.
Count me in. I'm all for it.
They are fanatics.
Yeah.
Check them out. Go online. Google Detroit City FC Northern Guard. Right. That's the name of the supporter base.
Yeah. The Northern Guard supporter group.
And let me ask you this, because that gotta amaze you sometime. Because you guys, you can talk about five guys that play in the rec league.
Pick up soccer.
Yeah, pick up soccer. Then you look up and then you look in those stands and you see, the people going crazy, and this is what you built. So is it like sometime a pinch me moment?
Yeah,
wow.
Now you mention it, Mateen, I think that we might actually have that in common. You might actually... I might actually have something in common with you.
Wow.
In terms of athletics. I'm realizing that because you're totally right, man. When that place is full, when it's rocking, we won a championship at home a couple years ago on a late goal. The place exploded with emotion and sound and and I'm sitting in the press box just right up in it, right? In the middle of it. And there's this moment where you can't help but just kind of and you've probably been there a bunch of times, but I've been there a couple of times, and there's a weird mix of joy and pride, and fear, because oh my God, is this the last time? You get in your own head and you're just oh my God, I gotta remember this, but I'm supposed to do things right now, and enjoy it, but be proud of it at the same time and share it, right? You want to share it. You try your very best, and I think that's one of those things that keeps us as owners and hopefully as staff coming back in terms of our commitment to this club is feeding off those special those moments and how much more special it is because of how hard you worked for it.
Yes.
And I think that's the way our fans feel too. I think that's really cool to think about. Not only am I as an owner feeling that pride and sense of ownership in that moment, our fans are too. And that's kind of the ultimate recipe for success.
Yeah, but you guys are aligned. Any successful team or business, when your values align with those of your fans or your clients, to to me, that just seems like a recipe for success. So keep up the great work, Alex. You guys are obviously doing huge things. We will look forward to the move to the professional ranks,
Oh, yeah.
seeing the team continue to win games, and seeing those loyal supporters of yours make tons of noise, both before, during, and we also know after games they like to have a good time as well.
Without a doubt. Yeah, you guys, you will be more than welcome. Come this spring for the next DCFC match.
We're there. Alex Wright of Detroit City FC. Thanks so much for joining us.
You bet, guys. Thanks for having me.
And thank you for listening. To make sure you never miss an episode of Power Forward, subscribe wherever you find your podcasts and leave us a review. And look for another new episode coming your way 2 weeks from now, featuring more inspirational stories of success. I'm Justin White. We'll see you next time on Power Forward.